No.
Call to order the meeting of the Utilities Committee for Ascension Parish for July the 10th. Roll call, Madam Secretary. Councilman Kluwat, Chairman, is absent, along with Councilman Turner. We have Council Chair Mr. Bill Dawson sitting in with us tonight as well. The invocation tonight, we're going to be led by Mr. Oliver Joseph, followed by the pledge. If everyone please rise.
Bow your head. Dear Lord, bless this great parish, bless this great state, bless all the members on this board to make the right decision for the people we represent. Dear Lord, also bless the Armed Forces Service members that give us the freedom that we have today. And dear Lord, once again, bless this great country. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no chairs additions tonight. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the agenda can sign in. And when that item comes up, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak on it. Going on to item number 5, acceptance of the lowest responsive quote for the CWEF 2014-2015 SCADA upgrades. Ms. Jones Shivers.
On July 5th, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 2 quotes for SCADA system upgrades for Parish Utilities of Ascension. After review, Parish Utilities of Ascension recommend accepting the lowest responsive quote submitted by ICE Sales and Service LLC, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service. We have a grant that's paying $100,000, and the parish has $30,000 as a part of this budget.
So the parish has $30,000 part of the budget, and the bid came in at $113,261. Is that correct, Ms. Jones?
Correct.
So we actually got plenty of money in that budget item. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sadler, second by Councilman Joseph. Any discussion? Question, Mr. Joseph.
Yes, if Mr. William wouldn't mind, just explain what the SCADA system going to do for us, if you don't mind.
I'm going to talk about it in my director's report, sir,
Well,
but
okay.
I'll be happy to talk about it right now. The SCADA system is critically important to the operation of the water plant. It allows us to monitor remotely and in some cases adjust different parameters of the water plant system. So, for example, we're going to be able to tell how much it's pumping in from looking at the SCADA. We're going to have inline turbidity and chlorine meters so that we'll be able to monitor the water quality at all times during the water making process. And we have this particular SCADA system is going to have basically an unlimited number of inputs, so that, if we want to put some pressure readings out further in the system or some calorimeters out further in the system, we'll be able to monitor those as well. So that's kind of the long term, but SCADA is critical to the operation. It'll show up on a big TV screen in the water plant, so the operators will be able to monitor it as it happens. It shows how much water we have in the ground storage, and it shows how much water we have in the elevated storage. So it gives you a lot of information so that you can make decisions about how to operate the water plant sitting at your desk.
Yeah, but it'll bring us to the 21st century.
It will bring us to the 21st century. We have SCADA now. It's more 20th century SCADA.
Okay. Thank you. That's
Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, thank you for your report, Mr. Daniel. So this information will go to our PT&D certified people through their phones, perhaps, and so forth?
Well, it doesn't exactly that. I don't know that they're tied into our SCADA system, but what it does is it creates a computer record that we use to fill out all our reports.
And therein lies its real value.
Well, that's one of its real values, but I mean, the ability to monitor your water making process as it's happening in real time, I think is is the primary reason for having it, but
Yeah.
that's certainly,
So before SCADA, then, we would have to just physically copy numbers down off of meters that are read and stuff like that?
yes. And we have limited SCADA now, but I underline the word limited.
Okay.
Mr. Dawson?
So, Mr. Daniel, is it
Don't know where
wireless, the transmission, or all the transmissions wireless, or,
Most of them, yes, sir.
okay, how many points do you know?
Well, right now, for example, we have it in each tower, the ground storage, and we read the input meters coming in and the turbidity, okay? The new system that we just got has pretty much an unlimited supply of inputs so that we can put inline calorimeters in the water so that we can look at the chlorine, residual chlorine as it's coming in and going out of the plant. We'll be able to, hopefully we're going to get some better meters too, and so we'll be able to monitor the water coming in. I mean, the meters are always kind of a guessing game for us and the filtration system. It also, and to Councilman Satterley's point, it also helps you fill out all of your reports, so it will put the right numbers in the right places so that we can see where the water's going, how much we have, how much we're filtering at any one time, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Any opposition? Seeing none, that motion is passed. Director's report, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. So I was going to talk about the SCADA, but I've talked about the SCADA. We're very excited to have the SCADA, and we're looking forward to the next grant so that we can expand it even more. Got our water reports back from our consultants, TMB. They said our water is absolutely gorgeous, that it's looking very, very good. So we're very excited about that. But there is somewhat of a negative about the water that I have to report. So back in January and February, when we were in the freeze, we had the freeze conditions, our 95% of our turbidity levels were greater than 0.15. We weren't terribly concerned about that because the state law is 0.30. However, we received a violation letter in the mail because we were greater than 0.15. And we didn't understand why we were 0.15. So we called LDH, and they told us that back in 2013 that Peoples had agreed to the lower limit rather than upgrade the technology in the plant. So basically what happened was EPA went and sampled the Mississippi River in different places for different things, and what they found near our plant was high levels of a parasite called Cryptosporidium, which kind of can cause stomach discomfort. So, so when this happened in 2013, they agreed to the 0.15 turbidity level. Well, we didn't have any records of that 0.15, of that agreement whatsoever with that Peoples had made. But our turbidity has always been very low, so it never actually came up until we had the freeze and we were trying to make as much water as possible. So we did have that violation. We only had, like, I think in January we had 92%, in February 88% or something. Don't hold me to those numbers because I don't have the exact numbers, but I think that's close. So we're required to publish and also send a letter to the people in the users of the water that we violated that particular level of contaminant, I suppose, that you would say in the water. The interesting thing is that DEQ didn't even find it until 6 months later. LDH didn't even find it until 6 months later because I think they were unaware that we were under the stricter levels too. And their research, I talked to Amanda Laughlin at LDH, and she said they lost some employees, so it kind of got lost in the paperwork, but then they hired some new employees, and as they were going through, they found it. So this violation, they're supposed to catch it within 30 days. They didn't actually catch it for 6 months. So, but we're still required, it's a federal law that we have to notify them, so we will be notifying everybody that back in January and early February, we violated that maximum, that the agreement that Peoples had made with LDH. So, does anybody have any questions on that?
So did we talk to LDH about getting out from underneath that commitment that a different company made with them, or where are we staying with that?
So you had two choices back then for your water plant. You either had to upgrade your technology so that you could correct, you would do a better job of filtering out the cryptosporidium and you could still have the higher turbidity level, or you had to agree to the lower turbidity level. So one of the other items I'm going to talk about is the USDA grant, where we're going to try to upgrade the technology. And at that point in time, we're going to see what we can do about changing back to the, if we upgrade our technology, can we get to the 0.3 turbidity again?
So it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the year when we found this stuff out. What are we doing to prevent it from happening again come next winter?
Well,
That was my.
I called in LDH because I was worried that there were agreements out there that we weren't aware of. So I actually called LDH. They came out, they spent about 3 hours with us going over everything that we had. What was her name? Teresa somebody. Anyway, they didn't even know it. So once again, we're going to look a little harder to see what other records might be there. We're going down to LDH and going through our files. Next winter, well, we have better procedures in place now than we did last winter to handle the problematic conditions that occur when you have freezing weather. So while I can't 100% guarantee, because you never know how bad the winter can get, I think we're in much better shape. The plant is much better run. We have very competent operators now. I feel that that we're in really, really good shape. You know, it's a very old water plant, so there's no telling what might break. But our operators are very good. We've gained a lot of knowledge from the consultants who've come in there and are working on all of the SOPs for the plant. They've had a lot of discussions. They've been very productive. I think the consultants have a much better appreciation of how the technology hasn't changed much about making water over years and years, and our plant operators have a much better appreciation of how they can do things better to continue making better water. So I think with the SOPs in place going forward, and the experience that we had last winter, and the more experienced operators that we have at the plant, and much more knowledgeable, I think we're going to be in really good shape.
Because hindsight's always 20/20 vision, and looking back on what happened, but it's also going forward with the procedures and SOPs and those things that you have in place, and there's nothing can beat experience, but anticipating at certain levels of temperature degradation where you're going to wind up with having issues and what the potentials are within the plant. And as you said, it is an older plant, but a lot of those things are still predictable based on, in my experience and stuff, is where the weather's going to go at. You're going to see certain things happen within the plant. And
well, you're 100% right, Councilman, and that's why we've identified things that need fixing. We've fixed some things that that really needed fixing. That I was afraid we're going to fail at any moment, and we fixed those things. We have procedures in place now. When we know the weather's going to drop, we're going to make water. We're going to store it. We're going to have extra water on hand. We know how to reduce the pressure in the system. When there's leaks in the residences, we have SOPs for these things now. And again, it's an old plant. Things can break. Things can go wrong. But we're as prepared well prepared now as I think we're ever going to be. Or we're prepared as we can be at this point in time in this plant's history to continue making good water and to continue to provide water to the people of Donaldsonville and the surrounding area. I feel very confident about that.
Okay. Anybody else? No, sir. He's got some more. It's just that part of
I
it.
was just gonna wait till, go ahead.
I got a couple of other things.
Go
So we've been studying putting sewer down Highway 44 and 22. The good news is about the Highway 22 CDBG project. We are going to bid that out finally. So that project will be bid out in the next couple of weeks or so. Supposed to get the bid documents back towards the end of this week or early next week so that we can put it out for bid. So I'm very excited about that. We'll be completing the study to see if we can run sewer pipe all the way from the interstate down 44 and then going down 22. You know, whether or not I'll be able to come back and tell you in 30 days or so whether or not that will be, or what the cost would be for the sewer fee to break even on that. So I'll have those numbers for you. But we will be able to get the CDBG project. I don't know why I have so much. I've said that a million times. Bid out, and that's been going on for 5 or 6 years. So I'm really pleased that we're able to bid that out. And finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the USDA grant. We have made great progress. We got the application filed. We met with USDA. They have now given us a list of things that they need, which, of course, includes design of the plant, design of the, distribution. They need all of that going forward for us to process our loan to get it to Washington. GSA has a contract. I'm going to let them do the application, finish the application for the USDA grant/loan. The fees, the engineering fees, are fully refundable when you get the loan/grant. So that's where we are on that.
Any questions for Mr. Daniel?
No, we're just gonna let the process go through and
Okay.
I'll ask a question on that one.
I do have one thing I want you to talk a little bit more about, William. You mentioned in the first part of your report. We got this email earlier in the week about the report from TMB, for TMB, about the water quality with the nitrates and all that. And a lot of what it talks about is where we are as far as within the process of where the signals are for it, as far as where the do not exceed numbers, and then where we're at as far as within the guidelines of it. Can you elaborate a little bit more? I know there's some concern that we've had through this process about how good we're managing the plant, and the concern we all have to make sure we're delivering quality product to the people that are doing this, because as we've said before, I mean, it's water. People are drinking this and consuming it into their bodies. So hopefully to give a little bit more of a comfort feeling to the folks that are on that side of the parish. Can you kind of go over some of the stuff that was in that report?
Yes, sir. I can talk about it generally. I don't have the report in front of me, but so we monitor many different chemicals in the water system. Of course, the most important is the residual chlorine, because that makes sure that you've killed all your bacteria. The turbidity is what filters out the parasites and things like that. But there's the hardness of the water, there's the alkalinity of the water, and all of this water, as I've come to appreciate, has a pretty complex chemistry, and it's pretty easy to get it out of whack. You need it to be, a very neutral pH so that you don't either cause scaling in the pipes or acidity in the pipes, which can leach out magnesium and lead, which of course is harmful. So, and then that report was about, the nitrification, which is you know, which has to do, of course, with the ammonia and nitrogen and all of that that's in the water. So, the EPA, you know, has not to exceed levels of that. Well, all of our levels are well below the not to exceed levels. And not only that, we have reduced the chemical cost in the plant. We have been, with baby steps, of course, because you don't want to get it too far out of the way one way or the other, but we have been adjusting the volumes that we feed in to try to come up with the optimum volume of chemicals that we need to do to keep the water just at all those right parameters. So, you know, we've relied heavily on our consultants through this process, you know, and we've gotten some good ideas about constant rate feed. You know, we're going to try to keep the water coming in at a constant rate and then keep the chemicals fed at a constant rate, as opposed to trying to match up higher rates, higher chemicals. You make the water plant run much better when, you know, everything is pretty well going at a constant level. So I don't know if that's specific enough for you, because I'm not a chemist, but I do rely on those reports as well, and I look at the maximum level contaminant and the contaminants that we have, and we exceed every single one, exceed the expectations of EPA in every single one of those. So we make a very, very good water product. It's still not as cost effective as I think we can get. But, you know, that's kind of also, I think, a very positive thing, because we can be more cost effective and not suffer with the water quality. So I think that we're moving in a very positive direction in that manner. In fact, I have some financial numbers to talk about at the end of the report that I'll go into more detail then.
Yeah, just as an example in what we have, so Bro Road has typically been our sticking point at the end of the system. It's the farthest point. It's a dead end, and we typically have troubles maintaining our chlorine levels there. And so through the whole system, most areas measured at a 2.0, which the state mandated level of minimum is 0.5 milligrams per liter. So most of the system was at 2.0, and at Bro Road, where we typically have our issues at, we're at 1.29. So we're more than twice, or we're over double what the minimum is at that point. And so that's a huge.
We have definitely learned how to do this much better. How to keep the chlorine levels high at the end by flowing the system better so that we don't have the chlorine degrading there at the end of the system. Really, I mean, the level that I've seen since I came here in October to today, it's like night and day. Everybody has a much better understanding of their job, how their job affects the water quality, and what they need to do, and I think that there's a lot more pride as well in doing things out there. So like I said, I couldn't be more pleased in the direction it's going. Now, you know, you got to stay on top of things because they can turn around in a hurry. But the competency of the plant is significantly better than it was back in October.
I for one, want to thank you and the whole team over there for the efforts that's being put forth to make sure that we're operating this thing and heading in the right direction, and applaud also the philosophy. We'll make some small steps. It's not about, we want to get to the point where we're efficient as we can be, but at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we're producing a quality product because of what we're producing, and I think y'all are headed in the right direction, so kudos for that.
You said the right word, sir, team. It is a total team effort, and I've had some people who have really stepped up in leadership, and I couldn't be prouder of them. They're doing an incredible job.
Fantastic. Anyone else? Yes,
That's the end of the report.
that's the
That's
end of
it.
that report. Yes, sir.
Okay, I got it.
Mr. Dawson.
So just, general question about the billing. So relative to PUA, what, I get some complaints, and I've had some problems myself with this, that, the amount of time between when the bill is due and the cutoff, how many days are there between when, do you know that?
I do not know, sir. I do not know. I know that,
Somebody, one of my
2 weeks?
constituents told me it was in the range of 7, which,
the official answer is 2 weeks.
yeah. No, but then when is the water cut off after the due date? So you got a due date, and then 2 days later you turn, well, that's why everybody's getting the water
No,
turned off.
I think it's longer than 2 days, but I can find that out. It's
You know, I
not-
think we should look at that, and we should look and see at, what's the norm in the rest of the place. Additionally, I don't know, something wrong with the mail delivery over on the west side also, because, I've had constituents tell me this, they receive their bill the day before it's due, or even the day of, or the day after. I've experienced that myself.
Well, the billing system leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, well, why are we cutting people's water off?
Well, now, I don't know, I can't talk to you about the cutoff dates, but I can tell you that they have to send the bills out 3 different times during the month, and that's something that we're going to work on. It just wasn't top of my priority list right now
Okay.
to figure that out, but
Okay.
it's definitely.
Well, I would say
I
this,
keep-
until we get the billing system figured out, why don't we put some space between this?
I was unaware
the
that-
cutoff date and
I was unaware that was a big problem, because that has not filtered to me.
okay.
See, the first time I've heard it was tonight, so,
Well, I shouldn't admit this, but I've had mine turned off twice.
well, see, now.
Well,
I've
But
made
I've had
mine
this
paid
different
automatically,
one
because
day.
I've forgotten before, too.
Well, yeah, no, I wouldn't do it just for me, but I've had a lot of people call me and tell me they came and cut my water off. And, the problem with that is the sanitation, of course.
Oh, no, it's a problem, because you can't flush your toilet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bad thing. I won't talk about the time I had to go to a hotel with my 3 small kids.
we ain't going there. Finish, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah. Well, ACUD 1, I can tell you that the bill due, they read the meeting at the first of the month by the 15th, and then the cutoff date is the 23rd of each month. It depends on it fall on the weekend. But when you say PUA, it is
That's a
kinda-
totally different
Right,
animal.
right. But we had a policy of,
And two different billers, too, by the way.
correct. But all I'm asking is, once again, is here we go with that desktop procedure or policy procedure that we need to polish up on so we can review those things and correct those things. That's all. I mean,
I will definitely look at that.
they call me too on my bill, but
Oh.
I mean, I go run and pay it real fast.
I
you know.
can't tell you how many people that I turned back on when I was in Baton Rouge. I mean, I had a very good relationship with Baton Rouge Water, because I needed to get certain council members occasionally turned back on as well,
Right.
so.
Okay.
But we will look at that, and there's other things that I want to look at, the fees for turning things on and off, and
Yeah.
Can you put that on
those
next
all-
month's agenda? To have that,
those
you
all
put it
need
on
to
next
be,
month's agenda come back with that, William, if you don't mind.
I will definitely do that, sir.
Okay.
Not so much,
Anything else? Okay. Moving on to item number 8, Parish Utilities Essential Monthly Water Audit Report, Mr. Williams.
No,
Oh,
number
7.
Number 7, I'm sorry. Approved local services agreement.
So, this particular agreement is between the Drainage District, the ACUD number 2, and Ascension Parish. This has to do with the CDBG project, sewer project. The original bid, the contractor was going to have to repair all the roads. We're going to connect up the homeowners to the system as part of the CDBG project. So they were going to cut into the roads. Well, the plan said that we had to completely resurface the roads, and I think that caused the cost to go up on the system. So what we agreed to do was have our own people patch the road, and so we want to have this local services agreement in place so that any drainage issues or anything that we have putting in the sewer, this will allow us to take care of them.
Okay.
Okay. I make a motion that we accept it.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Sadler. Any discussion or questions?
Well, I want one question on this CB.
Go ahead.
These these are the families that can't afford it, and you're going across the road, and they provide the free money for them to hook up, correct?
Yes, sir. The grant allows us to go in and hook these families up.
Okay. I just want to
Yes, sir.
verify that's what they're
Right.
for.
So I know on one of these things we talked about, if I remember correctly, it was more running parallel with the road because of the right-of-way, that we were gonna have some issues, if I remember correctly. But I guess my question is, we're gonna be cutting across the road, would it make more sense to bore as opposed to tearing the road up? And did we look at that?
Well, that will be in the bid, Councilman, so I think it would be a lot more expensive to do that. The road patches, I think, are going to be fairly inexpensive to do, which is why we wanted to take them out. But part of the reason that we wanted to take them out was they're going to be very small cuts, but we said that you had to bring the road back to a good quality, and they were thinking they were going to have to pave the whole road because there were some parts
Right.
of the road that were pretty poor. So I think the cuts are going to be small. So I think it's going to be a lot cheaper to. They'll have part of the road torn up anyway to put the sewer line in. So I think it may be cheaper just to go ahead and make small cuts in the road to do that.
So is this residential
Yes, sir.
tie-ins, or is it gonna be some of the main trunk lines we're talking about?
Well, I think it's going to be,
Or both.
the trunk lines are going to go parallel to the road, but some of the tie-ins will go, of course, they'll go perpendicular.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And just for clarification, these motions are to send this to the full council, correct?
Recommendation.
So it's recommendations to the full council. Now we're moving on to item number 8, monthly water audit report.
So, again, we sold 20 million gallons of water. We had 15 million gallons of non-revenue water. Of that 15 million gallons, we had 4 million that we can account for and 11 million we can't. I was having a discussion with Councilman Joseph prior to the utility meeting starting. The lowest water, unaccounted for water loss occurred when we had the freezes. And that leads me to the initial conclusion that the meters may be responsible for a lot more of the water loss than I had heretofore thought. Because when the pipes were burst in your house and the water's going through, the meter's flowing it a lot better. When we met with the meter people, they told us as the meters get older and the water goes through at a slower rate, then they don't work as well. So I use 90%. I mean, that's just a guess. I'm thinking that it's lower than that the more I look at the numbers. I've also got 3 summer employees that are going through and matching up every account with every meter. Also making sure that if there's several houses on a property that they each have a meter instead of just one meter, so that because it's not fair that 3 houses have 1 meter, because if one house just uses a little bit of water, they don't even pay the minimum. So we want to put everybody on equal footing. So we're going and doing that, and that's what they're doing this summer, and they're doing a really good job at that too. So But that's where we are, we're at 11 million gallons. It's been pretty consistent all the way across for the last few months, except for January and February.
Mr. Joseph?
Mr. Daniel, when you
We
was
fixed
talk-
that fire hydrant, sir. Just so you would know.
There you go. So we,
Anything else?
it's fixed. I don't know.
Next person.
Mr. Daniel, we talking about those meters, and once again, we're looking at water loss and everything else. But the rule you just say, some houses have 3 meters, have 3 resident, 1 meter. Now, and I always hate to bring this up, but in ACUD 1, in our policy and procedure, it was by a accepted policy that every resident has to have a meter. Have we adopted that in PUA?
Well, I have adopted it.
Well, but any policy or procedure or law, we have approved.
Okay, well, I
I'm
thought it
just
was,
saying some of these issues because
I think part of the problem was and we've come across this, they've made deals with people, like, we'll put a meter out there, we won't read it, but we're gonna charge you $20 a month, regardless of how much water you use, and things like that. We've come across these things.
yeah.
And we're trying to do them go through them as quickly as we can. I'm not aware that there is an ordinance that says that the district in PUA says 1 meter per house.
Right.
But that's obviously something we need to look at. I understand your question better now. Yes, I do not know if there is a policy of 1 meter per house ordinance. I would guess not, since
Not in the PUA, but I
Not
know
in the PUA.
ACUD one have it in their
Right.
policy. And that's one of the things that, when you bring those policies and procedures to us, I'm hoping that all that is in details on it like that.
okay, I got you. Would you?
I got another way of phrasing that. So when can we expect this being brought to us? I find it shocking that we're this far into this, owning this company, that we have still yet to rectify that we have 2 policies and procedures for water systems on the same side of the river and 2 sets of rate structures. So when can we expect something to be brought to us that solidifies and joins those 2 together to where right now I don't have the answer to it, but these guys do, that they got people sitting here in one water system in their district and on another water system in a district, and they're paying 2 different rates and everything else that goes along with that, and we own all of it. And it's to me, it's beyond time that we should have these things brought in and unified.
You're 100% right, and part of this okay, 2 things that are going on right now. First of all, I have an engineering company that's looking at the engineering aspects of combining these 2 together, these 2 systems together, from a hydraulics and hydrology aspect. Second, with the USDA application, we're also looking at that as well. The maximum rate of the plant is about 3 million gallons a day today. We're hoping to increase that by 1 million gallons a day, up to 4 million gallons a day with this, if we're successful with the USDA application. That'll also give us a better idea of what we can do with the rate structure, because one of the concepts of the USDA loan is don't raise your water rates. So ostensibly, they loan you the money to try to keep rates down. So that's all tangled together in the engineering study and the USDA application that we're doing. But when we come out of this, hopefully in another 60 days, we'll have a much better answer to that.
Well, I would challenge you in the sense that, at least from my prior knowledge of the study that was done prior to us purchasing the system, that there's more issues in the distribution system than there is in the plant. I know the plant's beyond time, but as far as leaks and everything else. And so instead of concentrating on increasing the capacity of the plant when we're losing so much water, obviously we don't need it. We need to stop the leaks and prevent that, and we can get more efficient from that way and save even more money on the amount of water that we're treating and so forth and so on. And instead of losing the water out the pipe, we can get it to the resident's home. And therefore, now, when it comes to expanding the system and putting more money or getting more people on the system, then obviously we need to increase the capacity of the plant. But right now, it's efficiency that we need to concentrate on and fixing more with the distribution system, in my opinion, right now than what we do with the plant.
Okay, and I apologize, I was not clear. The USD application also is for the distribution system. It's about 10 or 11 million dollars of replacing pipe and meters. So it's almost, it's about 50-50, the cost of refurbishing the plant and the cost of fixing a lot of the really bad issues in the distribution system. I'd like to replace the entire distribution system, but I think that is in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 million dollars, and I just don't think that's affordable at this time. But we can replace the worst pipe in the distribution system.
I agree with you totally, but that's part of contention when we bought this thing was that we would come up with a ratable replacement time frame on the distribution system to make sure we get to the 10 state standards to where we're not dealing with the situations that have happened in other parts of the states and the country, to where we have this lead pipe or whatever, a galvanized pipe we may have in the ground in that system. But we do it at a ratable rate to get those things replaced. And obviously, we can't do it at one point in time, but we don't have the revenues for us to do that. But there's a lot of benefits in going through and identifying the worst areas, but also making sure that we have the system looped in and make it as efficient as possible while we go through and do the replacement on that system. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a plan to come forward that says year 1, year 2, year 3, and this is where we're going to be working towards in replacing the distribution system. And if we go after the high volume leaks and the real bad parts of the system, it's just the right thing to do. But somewhere down the line, we've got to get a plan in place that tells us this is how we're going to go through and upgrade this system to where we can control our own destiny with it.
And that's exactly where we're headed. It's just it's a slower process than I hoped, but we're headed in that direction.
Okay, Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, Mr. Daniel, for this report. So there's going to be a question here at the end somehow, some way, I think. But I need to try to understand some things first as well. Underwater losses is particularly intriguing to me. We have in our packets the spreadsheet that shows from January, everybody at home can't see this, to May, water losses divided into two categories of apparent water losses and real water losses. And so just taking, let's say, make it simple, the month of May, and we talked about this, you did anyway a minute ago, that if we look at the customer meter accuracy loss, it's approximately 2 million gallons. For reference, it's that number 1,947,061. And what I see there, that's calculated as all the months on this idea that, and you admitted last time to me, and still are, and I understand it and working on it, it's arbitrary with the 90% average customer meter accuracy. But what bothers me, and the question is going to be this, I think, eventually, for all the months, including May, and for the total of the 5 months, the unauthorized consumption is just unknown. So the total apparent loss, water loss, is that 1.940761 number, or we just round it to 2 million gallons. Now, if we add real losses into the picture in your second part of your table, we see total real losses are around 2.665 million gallons. And so then you have total line in there water losses, which is real plus apparent. So we add the 1.940 or the 2 million back to 2.6. I see where you get the 4,606,201 as real plus apparent. Now here's the thing. If non-revenue water, defined in your parentheses as water losses plus unauthorized consumption, is 11,059,282 gallons, am I correct that if we take the 4,606,201 from that number, 11 million plus gallons, that really that's the unauthorized consumption? Because that's a little bit bigger than
Sir,
3 meters sharing this. Or
we don't know what the unauthorized consumption is, sir.
I understand, but boy, if it's 7 million of 11 million gallons in a month, wow, in terms of, we just had a discussion about what we should be prioritizing ourselves on. We need to figure out, are people really getting that amount of free water from us?
Well, I would say that, that there is a combination of meter accuracy, which again sort of translates into free water.
All right, but we could lower that 10% to 90 to 80 to 70. It's not going to come anywhere near.
Well, if you lower it to 65%, that number goes down to about 4 to 5 million gallons.
Okay, and that would put us at 9. We'd still be about 2 million short. But I mean, boy, if our meters are that inaccurate, wow.
It would go to the unaccounted for water loss would go to about 6 million now.
Are you ever going to come here and, I mean, this isn't a criticism as much as it's an observation, but I guess it's a criticism, a constructive one. We cannot keep having, for the months of January, February, March, April, May, the 5 months, and then the total now of the 5 months, the word unknown and unauthorized consumption.
Well, I don't know what it is, so would you like me to put in a number? I'll put in whatever number you suggest.
No, I don't want you to do that no more than I like the 90%. I'm just saying, work with me on this, Mr. Daniel. Oh, you can call you by your first name. There must be something we can do to figure out what's going on here.
We're looking for unauthorized consumption. We're going around and checking meters to make sure that that I don't have a meter that's not being read, that I don't have a meter that I don't know about. We're trying to do all those things. I have a limited amount of staff. They're mostly fixing leaks.
You won't go out on a limb, though, and predict that the word unknown is going to disappear in an unauthorized consumption column, or I should say row.
If I am able to get money to repair the pipe and replace the meters, then I will have a much better idea of what unknown is.
Is it your belief then that this 90%, if it went, it really should be maybe 60 or 50? It's that bad as far as our meter accuracy? Because that gets back to my comments a while back that we may have bought a pig in a poke here.
Well, and I'm going to get to the finances here in a second. But I honestly, do I think it's 90%? No, I think it's lower than that. How much lower than that? I don't know. I've tested a lot of meters. I've gone out and tested them. Some of them read very well. Some of them don't read at all. Some of them read at 90%. Some of them read at 70%. They're all over the board. I have 3,700 or 3,000 of those meters. I would have to test a much larger sample to really get a.
Okay, but so do you keep it at 90% so that we don't tell you just go out and buy a whole bunch of meters?
No, I want to go out and buy a whole bunch of meters, believe me.
You could say, for example, it's 60, and look, Doc, I just accounted for another 5 million gallons, so it's really not that bad. But then we'd be sitting here saying, well, gee, if we have 60% average meter accuracy, we got some crappy meters.
I lay awake at night dreaming of meters, Councilman Satterley.
All right, I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Real quick, so do we have a replacement plan in place? Or are we looking at a replacement plan?
Yeah, that's the USDA application also is going to include replacing all the meters. And those meters are approximately $300 each. They're the radio meters. You don't have to read them manually.
Right.
That comes straight into your office so that you know exactly what the water rate is. If someone's got a leak in their house, you can tell them. They're all great, but they're $300 each. So you multiply 3,000 times 300 and you're at $1 million.
Right.
And so I'm trying to, that's one of the reasons I'm pushing this USDA loan so hard is I absolutely have to replace that old galvanized pipe and I have to replace those meters. Those meters are 30 years old.
Right.
They're past their useful life.
Well, even if it doesn't come through USDA, I mean, we ought to have some kind of plan in place that we replace X number per year,
Right.
kind of thing in my mind. Councilman Joseph, sorry.
Yeah, and Doc, I understand what the meters. I would ask Mr. Daniel, because he have those extra summer workers and he's done some of these meter reading, can we get a more detailed picture of what have you done with residential, commercial, and how, basically break it down. Just how many unauthorized meters we found, that's where they're going to make up some water. Give us a snap picture.
I will. They've only been at work for a week.
I understand that, but I mean,
So
if you can.
I will have that next month. They'll have like a whole month
Right.
of,
So
Awesome.
So
we'll
I'll
know
have
what
some
the
data for
city,
you.
what we dealing with inside the city, how far, how bad it really is with it after you done done it for 1 month. We got 50%
Sure.
because of getting free water. I'm just using that example, but at least we'll know we're solving the problem. At least you're solving the problem, knowing that you are doing a reconcile on every resident, home and business.
yes, sir.
throughout.
I'm definitely moving that direction. It's, I could make a career out of this water plant, sir.
Understandable.
This one's okay.
Mr. Dawson?
A couple of things. I don't really, to kind of go back to the chairman's statement about equalizing the rates, I don't really understand why that should be dependent on any physical, changing of pipes or anything else out in the field.
It's not dependent upon that. So USDA's policy is if they grant you this, they give you this free money, they don't want you to raise the rates.
Well, that's all, to me, it's all the more reason to do that before we submit the application.
Well, they want to make sure that your rates are in line with, I'm happy to do, if you want to raise the rates,
I didn't
I can
say-
tell
I
you
didn't
that we
say
need to,
raise
I can
the
tell you
rates.
that we need to raise the rates. I don't know what we need to raise them to. The plant's making money.
I didn't say raise the rates. I said equalize the
Equalize
rates
the rates.
between ACUD one
Well,
and.
ACUD one
and
is
PUA.
high.
Well,
And-
some of them might need to go down, some may need to go up, but, I think there needs to be an equalization.
We're looking at all, as part of the USDA grant, we're looking at all the rates around us and trying to come up with a number that we think will help us with our grant and our application.
Also it's my appreciation that we have some industrial and commercial rates that are low compared to what we're seeing.
And I don't think USDA is going to care a whole lot about those commercial rates. So those are
They
some
only
that we
care
could
about
probably
residential.
target.
Okay. Secondly, see if I did this correctly. So, lose about 10 million, we have about 10 million gallons a month that's unaccounted for, if you will. I'd call it unpaid for.
Absolutely.
So that's about $50,000 a month.
Something like that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, some of it could be leaks that we don't know about and different things. So
Well,
I can't
no
say
matter,
that all of it's unpaid
If
for.
you say
But
it cost us $5 a thousand to make the water.
well, it cost us
Still a loss.
$5 a thousand to make it, distribute it,
Okay.
send out the
Get it to
bills,
the customer. Okay.
get it to the customers, all aspects of it.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Moving on to item number 9, monthly cost per 1,000 gallons of water, although it sounds like we kind of covered that.
Well, I did, what I wanted to point out was year-to-date cost. Now, this is just PUA. Okay, this is not ACUD number 1. ACUD number 1 is not reimbursing PUA right now for the water, but it's just right pocket to left pocket type of money. And there's not many expenses on ACUD number 1, just some occasional repairs, and then the water we purchase from the other parish. But for PUA, and a lot of the expenses that we have in PUA are also ACUD. Because we pay the salaries of all the employees and they do both systems. So we've spent $631,000 and change year-to-date. And we've made $659,000, not counting any ACUD number 1. So we're in a positive position in the finances of the plant. And again, I think that we can do better. We can certainly be more efficient, but those efficiencies are going to have to do with some capital expenditures. We're going to have to make some capital expenditures to be more efficient. And of course, pumps and meters are at the top of the list. But like the SCADA was a grant, so we're going to go for that grant again, and we're going to put some additional equipment in. But it's a pretty slow way to get everything fixed. And we could use that grant for some of the meters and things, but we've been trying to upgrade the facilities at the plant, so, you know, with the SCADA and things like that. So that's been our top priority, but as time goes on, I'm going to be searching for other money to try and get that to replace some of this equipment as well.
One of the things that LDH has is similar to DEQ with the low interest loans that they have. It's not quite as good as what DEQ is, but it's still it's a little over 1%, 1.5% or something along those lines, at least last time I looked at it. So that's another source of revenue. But I guess a question I would have is, so why are we not ratably pulling out the expenditures of the employees for ACUD1 versus PUA? I know it's an added.
I'm not sure how finance does that. I mean, I haven't really.
They do it on a percentage based
Right.
on how Mr. Daniel run PUA, he run ACUD1. He might they put a number on it, 10% of his salary may come out of
They
ACU.
do allocate some of them,
Yeah,
so.
and not all of them, but he's correct. ACUD1 have 100% employees. Then
So we're not,
Mr. Daniel, PUA, parish staff, say
Right.
a percentage of it come from that too. So, and it's shared among various departments, and finance can break that down to you, is the weird
well,
way to do it.
I mean, the statement he made was that it was all figured into this, and so, I mean, if that's the case, then that needs to be changed
And
on the.
It's not 100%, but most of the expenses are really run kind of through PUA.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. I mean, like you said, with the plant and everything else that's there, it's a total different kind of operation than what you have with ACUD1, plus the age of the system and everything else.
yeah, and on it,
The O&M's gonna be a lot different. Mr. Joseph?
yeah, Mr. Daniel, I understand this per 1,000 gallon, that rate right there, but if we was gonna do this and keeping the finance and the records correct, we buy water from Assumption, and if we had to purchase water, if ACUD1 was actually purchasing water from PUA, what would be the price to sell water to ACUD1, and we keep those identity
Right.
as we are today, and PUA make money, I mean, you know, and ACUD1 to lever out those costs. I guess that's where we want to go at in the future.
And I'm heading that direction. Just, there's a lot of moving parts to this water plant. Specifically, you know, just keeping a good quality water. That's my top priority. I mean, you know, I've dealt with wastewater a lot in my life, and you can mess wastewater up really bad and you're not going to kill anybody.
That's right.
You mess water up and you can do some real damage. So my top priority is to have a safe product and a dependable product, and then I'm kind of branching out from there. But again, we cannot afford to let the quality of our water suffer.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? All right, moving on to the next item. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Dawson, second by Councilman Sadler. We are adjourned.